Religious, political leaders gather for interdenominational prayers for the victims of the Westgate Mall attack in Kenya. Fighting flares up between Mali army and rebels in the north of the country. And fun under the sun. How about relaxing at Lido Beach, a famous attraction in Mogadishu? This is Africa Live on CCTV News with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program, businesses around the Westgate Mall in Kenya are struggling to recover as customers avoid the area. And former Manchester City boss Roberto Mancini lands new job as Galatasaray coach in Turkey. Well, in Kenya, we start with a broadcast there where leaders from the Muslim, Christian and Hindu communities are holding national prayers in the capital, Nairobi, to promote healing after the Westgate Mall attack. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are amongst those attending the meeting. The interfaith prayers organized by the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims is set to commemorate those who lost their lives or were injured in the attack, as well as unite the country. 67 people were killed after terrorists stormed the mall on September the 21st and opened fire indiscriminately. Let's now cross over to CCTV's Robert Negila, who joins us live from the Kenyatta International Conference Center, where the prayers are ongoing here in Nairobi. Robert, what can you tell us from the prayer meeting?
Well, what we do know is these prayers have been ongoing for the last 3 hours. Interdenominational faiths that participating in this with leaders from a cross-section of the political divide and invited dignitaries really from the diplomatic corps. Now, as of this moment, we've had about 34 speakers, both religious leaders from the Islamic and Christian faiths saying prayers and giving small speeches, and some political leaders as well. We expect the Deputy President to address the gathering shortly before the President is due to come in and address the gathering and the country at large as well. Now, when the President does come up to address the gathering, we expect him to touch on the tragedy that occurred several days back, the Westgate attack, in which dozens of people lost their lives. We do not, however, expect him to touch on the investigation, which, as the Ministry of Interior said, is an ongoing investigation, and as soon as they have they're complete with preliminary investigations, then they'll be able to come and address the country on their specifics. So as yet, nothing clear on the investigation at all, but the prayer service ongoing as we speak.
Robert, there have been a lot of questions, though, asked over how the government handled this whole crisis. Now, have government officials present at that gathering spoken about the challenges they underwent?
Well, to be honest, there's really nothing, hardly anything coming from government circles. Up until the last day of the siege, where there was a lot of communication from various security agencies within the government, suddenly all went blank. And this is due partly to the different information that was coming out, misleading information, some have said, that was coming out from government circles. And we also saw the President come out on the second day of the attack to make it clear that the police were in the lead in that particular operation. Now, since then, a lot of details have come out as to the nature of that attack and the operation itself. And by all accounts, it seems to have been a bungled operation. There are now reports of looting that was taking place in there. So still a lot of details to come out, very little coming out from government circles. But we do expect to hear from the government before the end of the week. Too long, if you ask me, by a lot of journalists saying the same thing. However, we will just have to be patient and wait for a government confirmation. Now, key among the things that questions that people want answered is exactly how many attackers were inside, where are their bodies at the moment, exactly how many people were saved, how many bodies are still inside, and the nature of the operation that took place at Westgate, exactly what went on during the 4 days that operation was taking place.
All right, CCTV's Robert Nagila joining us there from the Kenyatta International Conference Center where prayers are ongoing. Thank you. Meanwhile, a team of volunteers carried a giant banner through the streets of a Nairobi informal settlement on Monday, giving residents a chance to write messages of support and condolence following last week's attack on the city's Westgate shopping mall. CCTV's Jane Keo tells us more.
Messages of love for the victims of the Westgate tragedy from people from all walks of life. Volunteers carried a memorial banner through Nairobi's Kibera slum. The banner gave young children and adults alike an opportunity to vent their feelings following the devastating 4-day takeover of the shopping mall by an Al-Qaeda-linked militant group. The attack killed at least 67 people.
I'm not happy. So many people die because of no reason. So I'm not happy for that.
The Westgate Mall was packed with midday Saturday shoppers on September the 21st when the teams of Al-Shabaab gunmen stormed the building and opened fire. Officials say at least 61 civilians and 6 security officers were killed in the attack. The Nairobi Mall was patronized by the Kenyan elite and wealthy foreigners, but even amongst the residents of Kibera, one of Africa's largest shantytowns, there was a sense of solidarity with the victims, with many still trying to come to terms with what happened.
We are all against terrorism and we don't want violence. So that is my message to them. We are against it and we will always fight against them.
Those organizing the banner project said it would be taken to Parliament so that the government officials can see what people have written.
It's a tangible thing that people can write on and express their feelings and show and tell people what they want to say. And it's going to go to Parliament, so the government people are going to be reading it, and hopefully they take it seriously. And yeah, basically it's just to show unity.
The Kenya Red Cross has reduced the number of missing people from the attack to 39. Jean Keo, CCTV.
Well, Kenyans in South Africa say they are proud of the unity displayed by their brothers and sisters across the political spectrum back home in response to the bloody terror attack at Nairobi's Westgate Mall. They gathered in Johannesburg on Monday night to remember those slain in the attack. Christians and Muslims came together in South Africa to pay their respects to the nearly 70 people killed in the Westgate Mall attack and condemned the senseless act of terror, calling it cruel and criminal.
The message from Kenyans in South Africa is that stand united. Let us fight this scourge called terrorism. To the people of the world, this is not only about Kenya. It doesn't affect today is Kenya, tomorrow it might be South Africa, the following day might be another country. So the message to the entire world is that let us all unite to fight these evil people who want to disrupt our way of life.
Considering what we've gone through as a country, it's good that the community comes together so that people can commune, people can talk, people can share the kind of experiences that have happened to their close relatives and also to their friends back home. I think that sense of communion is what we're looking for. But also on top of that, we want to see whether we can contribute a little more in terms of money, in terms of funds, so that we can put it in the fund that has been set up to help the families of those who have been affected.
There has been a fresh outbreak of violence in Mali, where gun battles between government forces and suspected Tuareg separatists erupted in Kidal on Monday. Now, gunmen attacked soldiers who were guarding a bank in the northern town, the birthplace of the rebellion that led to a French military intervention in January. Reconciliation between the north and south of Mali tops the agenda of recently sworn-in President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. Separatist rebels from the Movement for the Liberation of Azawado MNLA on Thursday pulled out of a June ceasefire agreement. Monday's violence is the latest in a string of similar attacks in Kidal that started on Friday when 2 Malian soldiers were wounded following an explosion. President Keïta is expected to return home, shortening his trip by 2 days from Paris. Let's get more now from CCTV's Kate Parkinson. She joins us live from Paris. Kate, we've been hearing reports that President Keïta is cutting short his French trip there. Any confirmation as to why exactly he's doing that?
Well, yes, a member of President Keita's entourage here in Paris told the French news agency Agence France-Presse that President Keita will be returning home, and it is because of the recent security incidents in Mali. Keita was meeting with the French President François Hollande this morning, and the spokesperson from Keita's entourage had said that were it not for that scheduled meeting between Keita and Hollande this morning, that Keita would have returned home even sooner because of these security incidents that you mentioned. Now, the latest clashes that we have seen in Kidal are a sign of just how difficult national reconciliation is going to be for President Keita, and he has said that this is his top priority. He has already appointed a minister to take care of national reconciliation and development in the northern regions. But these latest incidents really do highlight just how hard that is going to be. These clashes between suspected members of the Tuareg separatist group, the MNLA, do seem to indicate that there are at least some factions of the group that are not happy with the progress that is being made in terms of reconciliation. But the fact that the security situation is so uncertain and that fighting is flaring up again does make the process even harder, because it does appear that more and more Malians will be less and less inclined to support a peace deal with these rebel groups. So President Keita has a big job on his hands.
All right, Kate, though, France was very instrumental in assisting in regaining stability in Mali. Now, there are those reports, of course, of clashes between the army and rebels. Has the government, the French government there, commented on the latest outbreak of violence?
Well, Hollande and Keita spoke this morning, and we've just received a communique from President Hollande's office. And while there was no specific mention of these latest incidents, there was a general message of support from France towards Mali in terms of security. Of course, French troops are still on the ground there, and this communique did say that while the terrorist threat in Mali had taken a significant blow as a result of the Franco-African intervention earlier this year, that threat could still return, and that it was important that all parties involved remain vigilant. Again, this communique re-emphasizing France's commitment to support Mali militarily, and when necessary provide support to the UN mission that is also on the ground in Mali. In fact, in these latest incidents in Kidal that we've seen, French troops did manage to quell the fighting, and a spokesperson for the French mission has said that they are trying their best to keep the situation under control. All right, CCTV's Kate Parkinson joining us there from Paris. Thank you. Well, we'll take a short break now here on Africa Live, but coming up, fun under the sun, a weekend at the beach. The Lido is a place to go. That is Mogadishu in Somalia. Let's now head to the Horn of Africa region, and Mogadishu might not be a first choice for some fun in the sun. For years, the Somali capital has been a war zone, but of late the city has known some stability and it is been rebuilding. And during the weekends, many residents flock to one particular spot.
CCTV's Mohammed Hirmoge joined the crowds and brings us this report.
If Mogadishu was marketing itself as a tourist hotspot, this beach will likely be among the first adverts. The sand is flawless, the sea is warm. Lido Beach can easily compare with the surf along Kenya's coast or Zanzibar. And for hundreds of Somalis, there is no better place to be over the weekend.
We come here every Friday. We play football and have fun. We also practice martial arts here after we're done with swimming.
I had left Somalia for South Africa in 2007, while Mogadishu was very risky. I came back this year and I found a lot has changed. Fun at the beach is among the changes I've found here.
Every Friday, revelers flock here for fun and recreation. Most people here confess that enjoying the beach had been such fun they missed over the many years of conflict. The city itself has a rich cultural heritage and landmarks dating back through the ages. In another time, you could even imagine Mogadishu as a tourist resort. That's likely a very long way off. For now, though, it's enough for these people that they can enjoy their beach again. Mohammed Hirmoge, CCTV, Mogadishu.
Zimbabwe's government says it will not distribute contraceptives to children despite earlier reports that the National Family Planning Council had begun distributing them to children as young as 10 years. Prevalence of child sex and cases of teenage pregnancies are on the increase in the Southern African country. More now from CCTV's Farai Mwakutuya.
It's a sensitive subject that has sparked fierce debate. On one hand is the traditional view. Children should not be engaging in sex, and allowing them to access contraceptives would fuel a social taboo. While on the other is the harsh reality that children are becoming sexually active much younger. This haven for abused children engages with youths on issues like sex.
They are more likely to open up to us, and they know probably we're not going to penalize them. So they will sort of open up to us and they will tell us, look, Auntie Stella, we are engaging in sexual activities, but we need more knowledge, we need guidance on how to do it or how to do it safe and things like that.
The center has dealt with cases of pregnant children as young as just 12. Recent studies like this one published in the local press indicate the severity of the situation. However, despite compelling evidence like this, there are those who believe that the gospel of abstinence should be the only strategy, period. Schools have lessons on the dangers of premarital sex, HIV and AIDS. Teachers say introducing contraceptives would undermine their efforts.
If there is money to buy all other contraceptives, that should be channeled towards enhancing the resources to teach these children that this is not right.
However, there is growing sentiment that the era of sweeping the issue under the carpet is over.
As a community and as a country, we need to address or come up with Plan B if abstinence is not working.
Despite this, Childline says it will abide by government's unequivocal stance. Zimbabwe has recorded a sharp reduction in HIV infections, and government puts this down to promoting abstinence. It says giving out contraceptives to youths would undo any progress the country has made. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Let's now take a look at other stories making the headlines at this hour across the continent. And Sudan pointed to fake victim photos and foreign interference Monday as it defended a deadly crackdown on protesters, which drew fresh criticism from inside the ruling party as the rallies continued. While reporters complain of stepped-up censorship, numerous videos and photographs purporting to show bloodied victims have been circulating on YouTube, Facebook and other social media. The demonstrations began 8 days ago and were sparked by a sharp rise in fuel prices. Authorities say 34 people have died since the protests began on September 23rd, with some reports putting the number as high as 200. Meanwhile, the first of tens of thousands of polling stations across Guinea began to announce their results Sunday after an election meant to turn the page on years of political chaos in the restive West African nation. Voters chose from more than 1,700 candidates vying for 114 seats on Saturday in the National Assembly, which will replace the transitional body that has been running the country since military rule came to an end in 2010. The full results are expected to be published on Wednesday amid opposition claims of vote rigging. Cameroonians have also voted in polls expected to shore up the parliamentary majority of President Paul Biya's ruling party. Only a few people were observed casting ballots in the capital, Yaoundé, as the final counts began by candlelight. One observer from the Lawyers Without Borders organization said they had witnessed incidents where voters' names and numbers did not match those marked on the electoral roll. Cameroon's President Paul Biya has been in power for almost 3 decades. Business news is coming up shortly. Your headline. Businesses around the Westgate Mall in Kenya are struggling to recover as customers avoid the area. It is slightly more than a week after Kenya suffered the worst attack since the 1998 terrorist attack in Nairobi, when an upmarket mall was taken siege by a group of terrorists. Businesses around the affected mall are yet to recover as customers avoid the area. CCTV's Jane Keo talked to one of the businessmen and tells us of their despair as they wait for things to return to normal.
Like many small business people living near the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Patrick Ngugi was eager to open up shop again after being closed for a week following the mall attack. Here, he puts his artifacts on display by the roadside, hoping that the tourists would start coming back.
Our businesses have been at a standstill for the past week, and tourists haven't been coming as tourists can't go somewhere that's not safe. We rely on tourists in this market as we sell them many of our artifacts. We are hopeful that this week they will start coming one by one.
It's a tough business as he relies solely on tourist trade and has to split his earnings with 2 of his counterparts.
In that 1 week, the loss has been immense. We small business owners live on what we earn in a day, and we don't have savings to help us through such tough times.
Security remains tight at the shuttered Westgate Mall with the military keeping guard. Al-Shabaab attacked the upscale mall last Saturday and held it for 4 days. At least 67 people were killed and some 175 were wounded in the attack. 9 days after the assault, there's still no clear word on the fate of dozens who have been reported as still missing. 5 militants were also killed, but questions remain about the fate of the remaining attackers and fears persist that some managed to escape. Jane Keo, CCTV.
And staying in Kenya for the moment, tourism and business is going on uninterrupted in other parts of the country that were not affected by the attack. Visiting tourists said their loved ones had been worried following the mall attack, but that they had been reassured by their travel agents that they were safe. Safaris offered to visitors take place outside the city and often take travelers to remote locations far from the capital, Nairobi. Now, American authorities have issued a travel advisory against traveling to Kenya, but Kenyan authorities have responded by calling on Washington to reverse the decision in light of security that has been heightened throughout the country. Kenya's tourism industry is one of the country's largest sources of foreign currency.
We were worried before we came. We had a lot of calls coming from people to see if we were still going to come, but seems safe so far. We've been with locals most of the time, so I think that helps a lot.
We were in the Masamara when the events occurred, so our children were concerned about our safety. But, they were reassured by our travel agents that we were safe.
Our world is a dangerous place today. Things happen all the time, so we didn't even get. Westgate happened the day before we flew, and a lot of people were concerned, but we really didn't give it a thought.
Now, South African businesses are being asked to cut back on their water consumption as the country faces severe water shortages. It is estimated that the country will run dry by 2025, with Gauteng, the single largest contributor to the South African economy, likely to be worst affected. CCTV Sumitra Naidu with the story.
South African businesses are being asked to come up with innovative and creative ways of saving and protecting water. The country is facing severe shortages and may soon not be able to meet rising demand by business and individuals.
All sectors need to start reducing the amount of water either utilized in their own processes or within their own operations, and to utilize water more efficiently.
The agricultural sector is the biggest consumer, using around 60% of the country's fresh water supply. The agro-industrial sector contributes around 12% to the economy. Food producers and manufacturers are now being asked to cut back on their water consumption.
We're already seeing some corporates like Woolworths, like SAB, looking at their agricultural supply chains and demanding best water practice from their suppliers. In this way, the private sector can close the gap within a year or two, whereas we're still looking at a decade time horizon for the public sector to achieve some of the same gains.
State-owned entity Eskom, which supplies about 95% of the country's electricity, is also under pressure to find innovative ways to save water. The power utility uses significant amounts of water to generate electricity from its coal-fired stations.
Our major focus at this point in time is to look at how we generate more electricity with less water. So in terms of introducing more efficient technologies that use less water. We're also looking at how we're diversifying our energy mix to look at how we could utilize less water. So for instance, moving away towards renewables.
Mining and other industries account for at least 11% of the country's water bill. Acid mine water drainage caused by decades of mining has become a huge problem for water supply, especially in Gauteng, an issue that government is trying to address with the new legislation.
We put in pretty stringent license conditions in terms of the management of mine water, which will require the mines to treat any water up to acceptable standards, and those standards are determined by the department before that water is discharged into the river systems.
The South African government is now looking beyond traditional groundwater to secure water supply. Some of the measures include recycling, rain harvesting and desalination plants. Aging infrastructure also means that government will have to repair, upgrade and build on its current network. These projects will have to be fast-tracked as water supply in South Africa is already at extremely low levels. Sumitra Naidu, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Let's take a quick look at how the markets performed in early morning trade this morning. Well, the Nigerian All-Share Index was up 0.77%. The JSE Africa All-Share shared 0.32%. The NSE 20-Share Index in Nairobi was posted at 0.53% stronger, while Egypt's EGX 30 in Cairo was traded 0.45% stronger. Now, former Manchester City manager Roberto Mancini is the new Galatasaray coach. The Italian is replacing Fatih Terim, who was sacked as coach last week. Mancini, who has signed a 3-year deal, will be paid 3.5 million euros for the rest of the season and 4.5 million euros for each of the following 2 seasons, excluding bonuses. He had been out of a job since being dismissed by the English club in May, after his team was shocked by Wigan in the FA Cup final and gave up their EPL crown to Manchester United. Mancini spent 3.5 years at the Etihad Stadium, leading City to the EPL title in 2012, ending the club's 35-year trophy drought. Galatasaray, who boast the likes of Didier Drogba and Wesley Sneijder, are off to a disappointing start to the Turkish league season, picking up only 1 win from their first 5 games. And that is it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can stay in touch with Africa Live on Twitter using the handle at CCTV News Africa. You can also visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa. Thank you for watching. I'm Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. See you again at 1700 GMT. Bye-bye from us.